Hello, beautiful MILFs, and welcome back to another episode of the MILFs Who Pivot podcast, where the term MILF is short for Money Making Independent Lady Friends. I'm your host, Bianca Terry, and each week I'll either be interviewing or reading about amazing women who have pivoted in life to pursue their wildest dreams and wealth from a MILF's perspective. This podcast aims to motivate and encourage other MILFs to boldly explore uncharted paths towards a fresh and fabulous leveled up life. My next guest is the fabulous Tanya Moore, a triple founder that includes a professional services consulting firm, a catering business, and a nonprofit organization. Through her consulting firm, Top Notch & Co., she provides innovative solutions that empower individuals and organizations to achieve their full potential while increasing productivity. She is known as the relationship building plug for always being the connector between people and purpose. She is also owner of TND Good Eats, a catering and food service company that provides private chef services, meal prep, and food service for events. Tanya's most recent accomplishment is the launching of Make Justice Healing, Inc., a nonprofit foundation dedicated to supporting youth between the ages of 12 and 19 who have experienced trauma due to gun violence. Throughout her career as a business owner, Tanya has been called to speak to audiences of various platforms, including women's and leadership conferences, podcasts, youth events, and more. Tanya holds a master's degree in human resource management with a concentration in organizational development and 15 plus years of corporate leadership experience, coupled with 7 years of entrepreneurship. A Virginia native and proud Norfolk State HBCU graduate who now resides in Atlanta, Georgia, Tan has transformed her pain, purpose, and professional gifts into a lifestyle full of service to others. Her life experiences and her successes have taught her that she has a heart and spirit for people. Tan's superpower is her ability to turn on the switch of greatness in others. Let's get started. Welcome, Tanya. Thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's so nice to meet you.
You too.
And thank you for coming in person. So for the listeners out there, not on YouTube, Tanya is live in the flesh. She joined me in person. So I'm really excited about that. This is my very first in-person interview.
Excited to be here.
So let's get into it.
Okay.
We have a lot to talk about. I read your bio, I looked at your websites, all the fabulous things you're doing. But let's go back first.
Okay.
Take me back, who was Tanya before founding of your businesses? What was your life like before your pivots?
Tanya, before the pivots, I was a mom. I was a career woman. I was working in corporate America and leadership. I was a mentor. I was doing some entrepreneurship alongside my corporate life. So I dabbled in being a business owner a little bit there, just not full time. I was a person, I would say personality wise, always fun, bubbly, life of the party. But I lacked boundaries before pivoting. I would say I probably gave people a little more rope than I should have a lot of times. Sometimes I would say hyper successful. I was operating in a lot of trauma that I didn't realize before the pivot. So I was that person that would like set whatever goal and it was like literally checking the box. I want to do this, done. I want to do this, done. So I was super duper successful. So I thought in all my endeavors, but there were a lot of things about me that I didn't know. Unknown things about me, underlying things that I probably thought maybe that I had either dealt with or faced in other phases of my life through therapy and other things. But I guess I didn't realize I was always so busy. I moved here, relocated from Virginia to Atlanta. And for 10 years straight, I just hustled. Like I went back to school, got my master's. I climbed the corporate ladder. Like every role I wanted, I went after and got it. Like I got my daughter through school, you know, I sent her off to college. So it's like everything was about everybody else except for me.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, especially being a mom. I can certainly relate. So before you decided to move from Virginia to Atlanta, well, what inspired that move? When did you start thinking about, hey, I need to change, or did something else bring you to Atlanta?
So I started grad school in Virginia. I was going to Strayer University, and I was in a job that I had been in for 5 years that it was like on the road to nowhere. It was a job.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't bring me a lot of meaning, a lot of purpose. It brought home a paycheck. I loved the people, and it was where I landed at the time. And I had been there for 4 years at that time. And I was like, I got to do something else. This is not going to work. And so I started grad school. And so Atlanta has always been like a second home for me. My best friend lived here for years. And so I had been traveling here every year for like over a decade. My first time in Atlanta was in 2002 for NBA All-Star Weekend. And I fell in love with Atlanta then. So I was always here and I was like, one day I'm going to move here. And so when I got into grad school, I said, okay, let me put my resume out and see if I can land a better job. At the time, I was making like $14.65 an hour. Mm-hmm. And this was in 2010.
Okay.
And I was like, this is just not enough for me. And so I wasn't getting any hits on my resume, like not one, not a job. And my undergrad is psychology and English. So I used to be a teacher, former educator. So I was in my second year of grad school. I had been putting my resume out in Virginia. I couldn't get any hits, no jobs, no callbacks, no interviews, I'm talking zero. So I said, okay, Atlanta's always been somewhere I've wanted to reside. And I've talked about moving there. And I'm like, you know what, let me just put my resume out and see what happens. And lo and behold, 5 companies were hitting me up to interview.
Wow.
Like totally went from nothing to a market that was like, yeah, your skills are in demand. Like you should probably come here. And so I started going through that process of interviewing. I had a friend that had already moved out here like a year before me and got in with a company. And she was like, hey, we're actually hiring. Are you still looking to move here? And I'm like, of course. And so she passes my resume to her director. And they reach out to me for an interview and they like, we know you're in Virginia. We'll do the first interview over the phone. And then the second interview, I actually had to fly out to do in person. And I got the job, took an entry level role because I was like, if I get in with this company, I know that I can run it up. Like I know I can run this corporate ladder, like especially being in grad school. Like I saw the opportunity within the company. And I told everybody like, hey y'all, I'm leaving. They like, huh? I'm like, I'm moving to Atlanta. They like, when? I'm like, in 2 weeks. Sound like my mom. Everybody was like, what? I'm like, yeah, in 2 weeks.
That's how it has to be sometimes. You know, you can't talk about your plan so much while you're planning.
Exactly.
Because then you open yourself up to other people's fears, other people's worries. You might start second guessing yourself. But it sounds like in this case, you listen to your inner voice. You recognize that you needed and wanted to change, and you made it happen.
And I had a whole family at the time. I was married. My daughter was in 5th grade. Like it wasn't just me, you know. He had his career. And I was just like, I'm leaving. You coming or not? And it sounds crazy, but that's how determined I was and how much I believed in, like, if I make this transition, this is going to be the thing that takes me to where I want to go. And I told him, I was like, look, you can figure out a job afterwards. Like, let's just get there. And I think he believed in me too. Like, he was like, I'm not staying here. Like, y'all not leaving me. I'm going too. And so we packed up and we drove here in a Penske truck. I didn't even have an apartment. I legit had nowhere to live.
But you had determination.
I did. I had determination. I had been like hustling back home on the side of like my job. So I used to sell food out of my kitchen, like late nights. I used to sell dinners, and I had stacked up like $10,000 in my savings. And I was like, look, I got a job position. I got $10,000. I'm like, you can figure out work whenever. We should be good. Let's just go. And we got in the Penske truck. He drove the Penske. I drove my car. We came down here that weekend. We stopped in Charlotte overnight to rest. And then Sunday we got here. And we actually lived in a hotel for a whole week. Wow. The Doubletree Hotel, which is now the Truist Park Brady Stadium area, was none of that when I came here. And I got here on Sunday and started my training on Monday with that new company.
Wonderful. It's amazing. You made it happen. So you're in a new city, new job. How was that adjustment for you in the beginning?
In the beginning, because I was so focused on my career aspirations, like I kind of didn't let my emotions and like me being away from family and friends, like when I moved here, I was 31, I want to say. And so finding new friends, like starting all over again, even from my food clients, like starting from the bottom, I was like, I'm just going to do this.
Yeah.
And the company that I work for, I met some of the most amazing people. Like I have friends now who have become family from starting working together. Like I have my day one people that I met. Two of my good girlfriends I met in training class, and we're like family now. We've celebrated each other's kids graduating. It was tough being away from family, but I think it was what I needed. I think being home and around your normal all the time, sometimes you don't really see what's going on around you when you're in it. You have all this security, and like my mom's a phone call away if I need somebody to pick my daughter up from school, or I can call my dad or my brothers and sisters, like my aunts. Like my daughter had a village of people growing up. So coming here, and I'm like, she was in elementary school, we don't have anybody. But my husband at the time, him not working, it was a huge help. Like he was able to go get stuff registered for school. It was almost like we had switched roles. He was always a provider and taking care of everything. And then when we got here, it was like the opposite.
Yeah.
But it was necessary. We were like a team, and that's really what made it work. I missed probably my sister the most. Me and my sister are really, really close.
Yeah.
And I think friendships, when you have genuine, authentic friendships, there's no time or distance that can change that. So my sisters who are really authentically my sisters, they are still here. You know what I mean? Like we didn't miss a beat. If we went months without talking, we would just pick right up where we left off.
Don't you love that? I mean, what I've noticed is that, you have those foundational friendships that kind of almost last forever, it seems like. And then you have some people that come in and out of your life for different reasons, different seasons. And you kind of have to be okay with that. Everybody's not going to ride with you on your journey from start to finish. And that's okay. Different reasons, different seasons.
Yes.
So let's get back to your career in Atlanta. How long were you at this particular company before?
Almost 11 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been here now 13 years, so the majority, a whole decade, I was with that company, and I progressed so quickly. Like I went in with a strategy and goal. Like I took that entry level role, literally answering the phones in a contact center. And like I hated contact center work. Like you couldn't pay me in Virginia to do contact center work. But I saw the bigger vision. And so I went in with a strategy like, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to stay on these phones for 6 to 12 months. I'm going to finish grad school and I'm going to just run with it. And that's literally exactly what I did. And every maybe like 2 years, I was promoted into another role. But I wasn't just moving around. Like a lot of people get in corporate America and they chase like money, they chase titles. They really don't have a strategy for how to navigate. And so for me, I had goals in place. Like I took jobs that strategically aligned with what I wanted to do in business.
Okay, so you had a vision beforehand. I like that. So then, when was your first vision, or when did you start the first of your 3 businesses? Like, when did you really get serious and it's like, I'm ready to, leave this work environment?
So I will be completely honest. When I first started, so my culinary business started, I would say not even really with like full intention of it being a business. It was one of those things where it morphed into a business. So like growing up, my great grandma, my grandma, my mom, I come from a long line of cooks. And as a child, I was always in the kitchen trying to learn how, like, what is this, grandma? What are you making? How do you do this? And so I always took a liking to cooking. And then when I was 15, I lost my brother to homicide. And cooking became therapy for me. I started cooking like for my whole family, making sure my siblings had meals. My parents, like, they didn't have to worry about cooking anymore. I became like the cook. And I took culinary classes like 3 times over. Like every time I could enroll in the elective, I took it. And then I was gonna go to Johnson and Wales and study culinary. And I said, I'm gonna go to college instead. So I kind of like changed it then, even though that was something I wanted to do. And then fast forward, before I left Virginia, I started doing late night meals on the weekends, like for a totally different thing. I was like just raising money, just like I need to make some money, like just for a cause. Like I didn't even know what the cause was gonna be. I just was like something. I feel like something is coming, and I need to be just stacking some money up. And so I started selling on the weekends. And then I never legitimized it in Virginia as a business. I just was, doing my hustle thing. And then grad school finished. I had gotten a place in my career where I was pretty comfortable. And I said, okay, it's time. Let me register this business. I went through a divorce and I said, you know what? I need extra money. Like my ex-husband was like a great provider. So for me, I was like, this is huge. Like for the first time in my life, I think I was 35. It was my first time paying bills on my own. It was my first time being in an apartment by myself. And I was just looking for a safety net. Like I was driving Uber. I was making $50,000 a year at the time. And I was driving Uber on the side. I was like, you know what? Let me just register my business and just start putting it out there and getting clientele. And that's kind of when I started to take it. It was still a little bit of a hustle. Like it was a little janky. It wasn't like all the way operationally together. It was registered, it was licensed and insured, but it was still on the side of my corporate gig. So it was still somewhat.
But you were still working it though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. And you had a lot to learn doing things on your own for the first time. Wow.
That was a major pivot. I didn't see divorce was kind of like the plot twist that I never saw coming. I never saw myself being divorced. Like my parents have been married 40 plus years. Like that was never supposed to be my story. But hey, here we are.
So how much were you working the food business on the side of your job?
So I honestly would take bookings as they came in. I would market some of it on my social media a little bit. A lot of corporate like gigs I would get booked for because people would say, hey, y'all feel food. Like it kind of started with me doing potlucks for my team. And then they would be like, so y'all know she does this like on the weekends. Like this is her business. And so word of mouth, like people just started booking me. And then one of the young ladies I was working with, she was in my department. Her daughter's middle school needed a like catering business for their prom for like 300 people. And that was like my first big break here in Atlanta. I was like, what?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they need a caterer. Like you should totally do it. And in my head, I'm like, 300 people for a prom. Like we're not equipped to do that. But I took it. I was like, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. I think that's really, really important. I mean, you started out doing this as a side hustle and then it quickly grew. So that's something I think the listeners can gain from. you can start small. You can start on the side. You don't have to dive directly into a business. You want to make sure that you're taking the steps, you are presenting yourself as professional as possible, but you don't ever have to have everything, figured all the way out in the beginning. So, I mean, that's very admirable, Tan. You're working full time, you're taking care of your daughter, you're doing the food hustle, food business.
I know, right?
Side and watching it bloom. So, take us through that period. I mean, did it continue to grow? Did you continue to work? Like, what happened after that?
So yeah, I worked for 6 years, roughly 5 or 6 years, alongside doing my catering on the side. That's why I feel like I didn't really take it seriously until I had to, because I was like, okay, this is fun, this is cool. But then I got to a place where I was like, I could really like make this thing a real business and like legitimize it. In like 2020, I got my website built. I launched my seasoning. Like I really started getting into other components of the culinary business, versus just being the person who cooks. And people started calling me like Chef Top Notch and Chef Tan. And I'm like, I'm not a chef. Like a friend that asked me one day, like, why do you never refer to yourself as a chef? And I'm like, because I respect the chefs who've actually gone to culinary school and this is what they like mastered. I have learned this through the ropes. And I like to call myself a food entrepreneur. Like I never want to take away from that. It's like calling myself a doctor and I don't have a doctorate degree. You know what I mean? So I never wanted to take away from the level of respect that I have for chefs who have gone through culinary school and really duked it out, working in restaurants, like making no money. Like people don't realize this industry is hard. The food industry is rough. You literally, it is like hard labor. You on your feet 14, 15, sometimes 20 hours. You can never pay yourself enough. It is a lot of challenges that come along with it. It can be very lucrative and very, I would say, rewarding if you really love it. It is one of those like businesses that you have to love. If you don't love it, you're gonna be like, well, this is work.
I can imagine. Yeah, definitely work. Even, there's some nights I don't want to cook. I love cooking like you. I grew up in the kitchen watching, women in my family prepare meals. So naturally, I do have an affinity for cooking. I think I'm, pretty good at it. But I don't think I could do it as a business, even though I've thought about it several times. I'm like, oh my God, people tell me, oh, Bianca, you're so good, you make this, you should do this. And I'm like, yeah, but when I start thinking about how many hours I have to be in the kitchen, and no thanks.
It's a lot.
So did you take it full time at one point?
Yeah, so this is where another pivot happens.
Okay, I think we done gone through about 4 pivots. That's life, though. That's life.
Give me like the pivot crown. I'm like, God, what another pivot? I can't. It's like as soon as I get like comfortable, the fire gets lit. Like, no, ma'am. So, back in 2022, April of 22, I was still working for the same company, and I had finally like gotten to the last position that I wanted, and I said, I'm gonna leave this company from this role, right? I had gotten that job the summer of 2021. I was running the mentoring program for the entire company. And so mentoring has always been my thing. I was mentoring youth at the Greater Urban League of Atlanta at the time. Then being a former educator, like it was on brand with like who I am and what I love doing. And I had mentored like adults in corporate America for like ever. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna apply for this job. And I got the job and I'm like, all right, y'all. My daughter got like 2 years of college. This gonna be my skate out of corporate America role, right? I'm in year 10. I take the role. Everything's going good. I'm loving it. Boom. April of 2022, they come to me and say, hey, this role is getting eliminated. And I'm like, I'm sitting in the conversation, like I get this meeting on my calendar And I'm like, it's with my director and my senior manager. And I'm like, what did they want to meet with me about on like Friday? It was random, like a 2 p.m. meeting on a Friday. I'm like, okay, whatever. It's like a 30-minute meeting. And so I get on the call and they're like, hey, they go through the little corporate jargon and they're like, yeah, so this role is actually going to be eliminated. We're going to move this to another department. So at the time I was working in the organizational effectiveness team. And so they were moving it to learning and development, which mentoring should really fall under learning and development when you think of a org chart. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Like in my head, I'm like, so I'm just going to move to another team. And they already have somebody over there that's going to run the mentoring program. And so I'm like, okay, what does that mean for me? And they're like, well, we'll help you find something else. We'll give you time to find another role. We'll keep your salary continued, for so many months. And, if you find something else, we'll help you get interviewed, all that good stuff, right? So they gave me time and opportunity to find another role. In my head, I'm like, I don't want to do anything else. And like in that meeting, like total peace just came over me. Like at a time when I should be, my daughter's in college, I got a mortgage, car note, like all of these business bills, like just a adulting life.
Exactly.
And I should probably be in an uproar. And I just had like total peace over me. Like, okay, we'll just figure it out. And in my head, I'm in that meeting like, I already know what I'm going to do. Like, I'm just going to run it full time with my business. I'm like, maybe this is God's exit strategy for me to go ahead and pivot now. Because I remember praying like a year before that. And I said, God, when it's time for me to exit corporate America, the one thing that I don't want to do is worry about how I'm going to pay my bills. Like, I don't care about nothing else that happens. Just don't let me be in a position where I have to worry about my bills being paid. And fast forward, a couple of months went by. Of course, I didn't find nothing. I took a severance and I left. And I said, okay, first thing I'm going to do is rest and reset. Let's start there before we go diving into business full time. I'm tired. I'm like, I've been hustling for 10 years straight. No breaks. I've gone through so many pivots and train wrecks for another day. There's a whole lot that happened in between those 10 years. But I just wanted to like take time to dial into me and really like figure out what I wanted to do, like what's next for me. So I kind of just settled in that, and I started traveling the world. I just started like waking up, doing whatever the heck I felt like doing. Like my first 6 months, I really just took a step back instead of just diving in head first into my business full time.
That's so important. And, so lucky that you were able to do that because like you said, you're sitting in a meeting, getting terminated. Well, you had options, but in a sense, that's what your position is getting eliminated. The average person is going to be freaking out. Yeah. What in the world am I going to do? Because that is what you have known. That's been your safety net for the past, 10 years?
Yeah.
But instead, took it in stride and you said, you know what? I'm going to be okay.
Yeah. That's exactly
right. And the voice was really kicking. It was. And when we're making big changes like that, it is important to take a step back and get the clutter out of your mind and your space. And you have to sit quietly with yourself before you can make big changes like that. So,
yeah. And I want to say too, like, be okay with processing your emotions because job loss is almost like a death, especially when I loved what I was doing. I never, in the 10 years that I was working, hated my jobs. So I thrived in corporate America. Like I'm a people person. I got to help so many people who look like me get jobs and positions and promotions and salaries and fight and advocate, for people like me. And so I was in a space where I felt like I was working in my purpose. And maybe this was God's way of saying, okay, you've done a decade of changing lives here, and now I have something else for you. And that's what gave me that peace, but outside of the piece from the meeting, I did have to go through that process of grieving the loss of something that I loved. Like, I got to close this chapter and I'm being forced to close it.
Mhm.
But I always say God knows his children and he knows if he don't kick me out the door, I will like double dutch all day long. Like, I can make this work. I can do both. I can do my business on the side. And the whole time I'm shortchanging my business, giving corporate America all my time.
Isn't that something? Sometimes our pivots are forced. It's not even intentional. It happens. And I love that. We think in the natural when it's happening. Why is this happening to me?
I went through anger. I went through sadness. I went through I'm going to miss my friends in corporate America. I'm going to miss the associates that I love and they love me. That was like my family. Because remember, I'm 500 plus miles away from home. So my work people is where I spent most of my time and they became family. So it was definitely a process to that's what that rest and reset was about. Just feeling my way through those emotions and being okay with processing the emotions of the job loss. Because like I said, at the end of the day, I had options, but I still lost my job. I had to have a reality check almost. Because it was okay, I kind of got laid off, I guess. And then I'm like, nah, that really equates to termination. In the grand scheme of things, I didn't have a choice to keep that job in that role. I had a choice to stay with the company and do something else. But I was in my place of intention and in my place of purpose, in my place of being meaningful in what I'm doing. I was like, I could just take a job to keep the salary. That would have kept me in my comfort zone. It wouldn't have stretched me any, and I probably would have gotten into something I hated. And I wanted to continue doing something that I loved. So I made a choice to say, it's been nice, it's been real, but I'm going to catch the stage.
Exactly. Because what you didn't realize during all those years you were there is that you were becoming prepared for the next chapter in your life. So I love it. Okay, so did you start running the food business? And then when did you open your other business? Because, Tanya founded 3 companies. So, by the way, it's T&D Eats.
T&D Good Eats.
T&D Good Eats is the food service and catering company. So when you left this employer, you took your time to rest, reset, regroup. Then what was the next step after that?
So it's funny you asked me that because in the interim of me doing the rest and reset, the way my brain works, I'm always in my head thinking of things that I could do. Because remember when we started this conversation, I said, not knowing, I know now, out of my trauma from teenage years, I became someone who was really I worked my way through everything. So goal setting and making things happen became a superpower of mine. Wrapped up in trauma.
Right.
That was how I functioned. And I was like, you know what? Before I even left the company fully, they told me that in April. In May, I registered my consulting and coaching company, Top Notch.
Okay. So you were already having a vision in the background, thinking of
how can else.
Okay.
What were you doing in corporate America? I coach and develop people all day long. I've been a corporate trainer. That was one of my roles there. My master's, its focus is organizational development. So I was always in management roles where I was doing strategy, process improvement, implementation, special projects, project management. So in my head, I'm like, okay, Tanya, let's just group something in case you need to come back to this. So I registered Top Notch and Co. I started kind of playing around with it on social media, doing a little bit of career development with people. It was I reintroduced myself to the world because my corporate life, I kept really separate from my social media following. People knew I had a good corporate job. They never knew what the heck I did. So I did like a let me reintroduce myself to the world. And I was like, hey, y'all, so this is what I do. Like, I just got on live one day. I was like, this is my background, this is my degrees. And I just got so many like DMs and messages and like comments. And, like, I had no idea. Like, people had no clue. All they knew was Tam moved to Atlanta and she living good. Like, she moved, she got a good job, she doing well. I don't know what the heck she doing. And so people were so surprised, like, yo, you are like an expert at this thing. Like, this is what you've been doing all these years. And I'm like, yeah. So it started with me doing like career development and coaching.
Okay.
And so I was like, when I leave, okay, this is in my head. I'm thinking of another stream of income that I set up. But I didn't realize there was a lot I needed to learn. There was a lot that I needed to sharpen in my craft, because when you're doing it from a business model that's already created versus starting it from a vision that you're creating, it's totally different.
Like night and day.
It is. And so I was doing the catering full time. I was doing all things food. I mean, from events to private chef. I had got a contract with a farmer's market where I was doing chef demos, cooking and teaching people how to prepare meals with fresh produce. Like, I did everything I wanted to do under the culinary umbrella. Like, I was doing meal prep for clients. I had people on subscription, so that was bringing income in.
Okay.
I had the seasoning that was selling. I did an e-cookbook. Like, I just started going crazy with like, look,
Is there anything you have not done?
I was like, I need to make money. I got to figure it out. Like, yeah. Because in my head, I started going back to like divorce life. And like when I had to figure it out on my own. And I was like, that was so difficult. I'm like, God, I don't want to go through that again. Like, I don't want to have to figure out how I'm going to make money or, you know, pay something. And so I was like, let's just run it up with the food thing. So I kind of started up the consulting and coaching business, but I tabled it somewhat.
Okay.
Because the culinary business was full time. I got to work in collaboration with a lot of local chefs. I started doing freelance gigs where I was getting booked to do banquets with hotels. Like, I just went and like became a huge student of the food business. I started taking classes because what I realized is that I knew how to cook and I had a business head. But I had never really studied, because I didn't go to culinary school. I had never really studied the business. It was a hustle. So now that I'm like full time in this thing and I don't have a 6-figure salary no more, this gotta work.
Right.
Like, I don't have a choice. We got college tuition going on. We got mortgage payments going on. I'm like, this thing has to work. So I pour all my resources, like, invested so much money in my craft. Like, my garage is full of like all types of catering stuff. I just went crazy with it. I was like, it's nothing I can't do with this thing. And then I ran it and ran it and ran it until it ran me. It burnt me out.
Okay.
Burnt me
And
out.
did you feel like at that point where you're like, okay, I think I'm finished? Did you phase out of it and then move into more of Top Notch and Co?
Yeah, so I still have people who reach out to me.
Okay.
This is what I said I was going to do. So the rest of 2024, to not cold turkey my clients who have supported me, who I'm so grateful for. Like, without my food business, I would not have stayed afloat. Like, I totally ran through all my savings. Like, I was living off of everything I had created from corporate America and from doing my business on the side. It helped me stay afloat because it was months where I didn't make any money. And so I said, my loyal clients who are already like in my network, I will still show up for them for the rest of this year, but they're going to have to get used to me saying I'm not in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I haven't really announced it. I just started scaling back from it. And I've been referring out, like when people reach out to me for new bookings, I've been referring out to other chefs that I've worked with that I respect, and I know they'll take care of them, if not the way I would, better than I would. So it was like a phasing out, like my subscription clients, and some of it was by designer. And I would be like praying, I'm like, God, I got this book in here and I gotta go speak here. And I was like, when I got my subscription, like I was traveling for contracts, and I was like, my chef demos at the market on Sunday. It was just became so much. It was like God was saying to me, you're going to have to put some things down to pick up what I have for you in this season.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't be in everything. And so my comfort had now become my catering business because that's what keeps the lights on.
Mhm.
But it's like my faith is saying, like, hey, you can't do this, do that, do your foundation. Like, man,
Time for the next pivot.
yes. I was like, I gotta let this thing go. So I just kind of eased and scaled back. So I am currently still showing up for my clients that are already on my books for the rest of the year. And then 2025, I am definitely not going to like leave the brand and close it. I have a plan for that to operate and run more like a B2B side of things from a contracting perspective.
Mhm.
And I can just be the owner and just get the revenue off of it.
Mhm.
I don't want to be in the kitchen. Because part of doing it full time made me realize that why I started wasn't for money. Like when I think about it, I love the fellowship and bringing people together over food. I love the creativeness of making dishes and cooking in intimate spaces. I never really liked the big event, 300 people side of things. And when it started becoming a money game for me, that's when I started to feel like I was unfulfilled in the business. I didn't feel purposeful. I'm like such a brain that I working with my hands just wasn't doing it for me anymore. I was like, God, what is like in my head? I'm like, okay, I left corporate America. I had this business going. I done put all this money or resources into this business, and this is what I want to do. This is what I love. Only to realize, like, no, the pieces of it that you love aren't what it takes every day to run this thing.
Right.
Like I consult in that space. So I've consulted with other restaurant and food entrepreneurs in their business to write their operations process, map out their menus, train their staff.
Mhm.
So it's almost like it's still there in a different space under Top Notch Co.
Right. And it sounds like you've had a good run with it. What has it been? More than 10 years now, right?
Yeah.
You've done all kinds of things in your food service business. And like you said, it will continue to run in the background. And for the listeners, it's okay to change your mind,
Yes.
get into something new,
Yes.
pivot. You know what I mean? You put your all into the food service business, and now other callings are awaiting you.
Yeah.
I
I heard
use your other gifts and talents in other places, and that's okay.
I visited New Birth Church last week. Pastor Jamal Bryant. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I know his name, but not too familiar with the churches in Atlanta. But I do know his name.
So I visited his church last week, and he said something that really resonated with me. He said, you have to understand that there are seasons for success as well.
Mhm.
So you could have a very successful, sustainable business and totally walk away from it because it's not in your season anymore.
Mhm.
And like when he said that, it was like God was talking to me himself. I was sitting there like, okay, if you wanted to just slap me on the forehead today. And I was visiting. I don't even go, like I have my own church that I go to. A friend had invited me to come to service. And that was like part of the message. And so I was like,
Wow.
I never thought about, I think as people, when we get so successful in things, we never think about the success being a season.
Mhm.
We think about success in the long term.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you never think to put something down that is serving well,
Mhm.
especially financially. Like that is how I pay my bills. Like
Exactly.
that was my bread and butter. So I was like, it's a sacrifice, but it's a necessary one for me to walk into what God has for me. It's like you can't do it all. And that was a season of your life when you needed it to be. It's okay. It's almost like a career pivot.
Yeah.
People change career paths. People go back to school and get degrees and totally did. You like, wait a minute. You used to be a doctor now. What you doing? What you can
Baking cupcakes.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think people have to just really get in tune with themselves and what fulfills them and where they feel purpose versus kind of like the societal norms or worrying about like what people think. Because I have like a whole social media following of T&D Good Eats, and like they look forward to me posting food. The market looks forward to me doing the chef demos. Like I had to tell the lady who runs the market like 2 Sundays ago to give my spot to another chef. And like this stuff isn't easy to do because I get paid to be there doing demos. But I'm not in a season of where I'm prioritizing money. Like God has me in a season where He's providing for me, and half the time I'm not even making money. To be honest, like the stuff that I would think was gonna be my revenue or profits for that month, He's like, nah, if you just do like what I'm telling you to do, you're not gonna have to worry about no money. Like stop in my head, because I started hustling when I was 14, doing hair out of my mama's kitchen. Like
Goodness.
yeah,
It never ends.
I went to cosmetology school. Like it's crazy because everything I've done has been connected to people and service. I noticed that about me. Being of service to people started when I was young. Like I literally used to have people in high school lined up outside my mom's door waiting to get their hair.
You with a hair plug.
I do my own hair. Like that was part of my pivot. So I do my own hair, my own lashes, my own makeup. I was paying $80 a week to get my hair done. Lashes, what they running like $200 now for lash techs. And my makeup artist is usually probably about $140. Usually when I do stuff like this, I go get my makeup done. No.
So you did a full reset.
Yes.
You said how you spend your time and money.
Yes.
And see, and I did an episode like that. It's going to air soon. A solo episode where I talked about creating a life of intention. And you hit all the marks, all the steps. And one of the main ones is you must reset the way you spend time and money.
Yes.
2 big resources.
Yes.
So then, get back to that living a life of service, and you realize your gifts and talents are connected to, servicing people, providing a service to people. Your foundation. Let's talk about that.
That's my favorite.
I know. The inspiration for that.
Okay.
And when you first got the vision versus when you launched, because I know you launched recently.
Yeah.
Still pretty.
So yes, my foundation is Make Justice Healing Inc. It is my favorite thing to talk about. You see, I light up like a Christmas tree when I talk about this. So
that's that purpose driven.
Yes. So my foundation actually supports youth ages 12 to 19 who have gone through homicide, trauma. They've lost a parent to gun violence. And the root of my foundation is my own personal experience. My brother was murdered when I was 15 and he was 20. And my family went through getting that phone call and going through that trauma of losing a loved one to gun violence. Out of that, my nephew was born 4 months after my brother was murdered. And when he was 2 weeks old, his mom said, I can't do this. And she left him with us. And 29 years later, she never looked back. My parents legally adopted him. And I was the auntie / mama / sister. So collectively, we raised him together with really no resources, no support. My parents' new normal is now I'm raising my infant, newborn grandson. I was in high school. My younger brother and sister were in elementary school. They were in like 2nd and 3rd grade or something like that. So this is a new normal for everybody. So not only are we going through the trauma of losing my brother, now we're going through a new normal of raising a baby too. And that was really the cause behind my foundation, because we support the children who are like my nephew, who now have caregivers, whether that's family. Some aren't that fortunate. They end up in foster care in different places. Some end up on the street. And those people are trying to pick up the pieces of their new normal with no support. Like they're going through this traumatic experience and now they got to raise kids. You think about that grandparent who gets that call and let's say their daughter's murdered. I just recently saw something where a young lady left 3 kids behind. Imagine a 50 something, 60-year-old grandparent now raising 3 kids in elementary and under. And so we provide resources for the family and the caregivers. And then for the children, we provide mental health wellness. We like to call it our mental wellness sessions. We do career development and workforce readiness. So the youth that are of age to work, we help them with that process of like resume writing, interview techniques, just preparing them for that, or entrepreneurship if that's what they're interested in and ready for. We'll also do tutoring services. And for the families, we provide resources. So I've been building a lot of partnerships out here because sometimes that family doesn't even know what they need. Right. You know, this is their new normal. They don't know if they need insurance for those kids. You know, if they need therapy for them, of course they're going to need that at some point. Mm-hmm. They may need tutoring. Like in our case, my brother ended up failing 3rd grade the year that my brother got killed. He probably really could have benefited from tutoring. You know, my mom is grieving. Everybody's grieving. Nobody knows how to grieve. Nobody, this was in 94. It wasn't a whole lot of talk around mental health. It wasn't a lot of media coverage around it. My brother's case is still a cold case. So I do research on that, and I like paid for some articles a while back. And there was 2 articles around his death, his obituary and when his body was found and identified. No other coverage. So like now you see it, it's all on social media, it's on news, you know, there's a lot more awareness being raised, but there's no support. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, we are aware that there is a gun violence issue, but where's the support? You know?
Exactly. I was wondering the same thing. It's like, okay, life goes on. Just push through, figure it out, and you know, you're expected to be able to perform and thrive in society, but no.
And that's how it goes. That's what happened with me and my family. Like, we just picked up the pieces. Nobody knew, you know, we went to church, of course. Typical Black family. You pray about it. God's gonna fix it. And it's like, nah, fast forward, I got to like my late 30s and them triggers was showing up and I was cussing folks out and angry and frustrated and mad and I ain't know what. And I wasn't mad at a person, place, or thing. It was like an internal battle of like frustration. And I went to trauma therapy.
Okay, because I was going to ask, how did you know that those were triggers? I think for so many people, because we all experience some kind of trauma throughout our lives, but for so many people, they don't realize that their actions, their current actions are directly related to what they've experienced in the past.
So that pivot, that rest and reset that we talked about, that's when it started to slap me in the face.
Okay.
I got really, really tight in my spiritual walk and like really just doing the work. Because I was like, I had went to counseling when I was 30. And I didn't go for trauma. I never even spoke about my brother's death. Like, I went to therapy because I was like, I'm always attitudey and my mouth is atrocious and I just want to be a better person. So I went to therapy with the purpose of like, I just want to be better. I want to treat people better. Like, I want to understand me more. I want to be self-aware. So it was a different journey then. Mm-hmm. And then fast forward 2 years ago, right, when all of this changed with my job loss and everything, I'm like, it's self-discovery time. Like, and self-discovery, like in your 40s, is completely different from like at 30.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. It's a whole nother conversation I would love to have. It is, though.
Self-discovery. I just knew that I had life figured out. Like, I was like, I'm all healed. Like, after my divorce, I took time to myself. I just felt like I had got into like my church more. And I was like, I'm good. Like in my head, I'm thinking, and I really was doing so much better as a person. And then one day I got triggered and I like flew off the handle. And I didn't like that about me. And I was like, I sat in that for like 2 weeks. Like, why was I so upset with this person? Like, it wasn't even, I felt like an idiot. Like, after the fact. And I didn't talk about my sober journey. So that was part of my pivot 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
I stopped drinking completely. It was like, you know how when people say that God spoke to them? Like, he didn't literally say, Tanya, stop drinking.
Right.
But if you experience it, then you know what it means to say, like, God spoke to you. Like, he literally came to me and said, I'm going to take you through this transformation over the next few years, and I need you completely sober all the time. I was a social drinker. I was never like a drunk. Now, college days, something different. But like fast
hold that against you.
yeah, college days, getting it in. But I was like, he came to me and literally said, like, there's about to be some changes in your life that you need to handle with no emotion, no influence, all logic, sober. And he said, you're going to have opportunities, doors opening, like there's going to be decisions that need to be made and you need to be on point all the time. This is like clear as day. And I'm like, okay. So I started it as this 8-day challenge with a friend. At the top of the new year, she's like, I'm going to work for 80 days straight. And I'm like, well, I can't work for 80 days straight. She's a hairstylist.
Okay.
And I was like, but I'll quit drinking for 80 days. She's like, for real? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. 80 days come, right? She throw this big celebration at her salon. They're making mimosas. We had brunch. And I was like, no, I'm going to just take some juice. And I was like, I'm going to continue the sober journey. And they like, for real? I'm like, yeah, I kind of like it. And so I made myself a promise, even though I had already heard God clearly tell me, you get ready to be as sober I said, I'm going to try to make it 365 days with nothing, no wine, champagne. I mean, nothing that contains alcohol. And I said, if I make it 365 days, I'm never drinking again in my life.
That's profound.
Now, mind you, this is January of 2021. Pivot to April of 22, I lose my job. Just like the transformations started happening, and I was like, it was like the light bulb came on, like, God told me that this is going, and then business decisions needed to be made, right? And like the journey of the trigger thing, I found me a trauma therapist. And she's an emotional intelligence coach. So I got a 2-for-1. Mm-hmm. I learned why I was so like frustrated internally. Because like I would just like, I don't want to really say explode, but I never really learned how to be vulnerable in my feelings and like tell people how I felt without it being over the top. Mm-hmm. And I learned from when my brother was murdered, I started masking because we didn't have an outlet, right? The whole family was grieving and going through trauma, and we didn't have the resources to know how to navigate it. So I bottled my feelings and got busy hustling. Like I started working, I started set goals, went to college, graduate. Like I just got in that motion of being hyper successful. And I didn't realize it was layered in trauma. So I would mask my feelings a lot. Part of my pivot, I learned in my trauma therapy too, that like I was masking because I feared being rejected. Mm-hmm. Or I was masking because I feared losing people because I had lost. My first significant loss in life was my best friend, my brother. Mm-hmm. And so my trauma coach was telling me like, it's not that you don't want to be vulnerable. You don't even know how to be because you've never had the tools to be. Mm-hmm. Like you got to think about 25 years of masking and like, right. I'm okay. I'm good. Because when my brother got killed, I became a sibling parent. You know what I mean? I was cooking for my brother and sister, get them to the bus stop. My mom fell into church. Fast forward 30 years, that's what kept her sane. Like, I can't fault my mom for falling into what kept her alive to still be a mother to us. So for me, I had to grow up. Like, I became a parent before I was a parent. And so a lot of my feelings and needs got pushed to the side. And so when I started to pivot at 40, baby, when I tell you I be so all about me and so selfish in a good way.
Yeah. I hear you.
I'm telling you.
That, this kind of thing happens in our communities a lot more
Yes.
than, we talk about, even not so much as on a huge traumatic level, but just taking in family members or being taken in by another family member. Doing whatever we can to keep the family going.
Exactly.
So that makes a ton of sense. I can certainly relate. And so throughout all of that, we still have to push through and live and get things done. We don't necessarily take the time for ourselves or are able or know how to deal with certain things so that we can thrive.
Exactly.
So that's why I think this conversation is very important, because we talk about making a pivot, being intentional, setting goals, taking time for ourselves, getting to know ourselves.
Yes.
That's one thing a lot of us need to do as women.
Yes.
And as women of color who may have had tons of responsibility or, gone through traumatic events, because that's what we do. We take care of family, we take them in, we try to make sure everything's okay, and we're last on the list. The role of a woman, I mean, it comes with so many jobs.
It does. And I didn't realize I had put myself last for so long.
Mm-hmm. But when the time came, you knew that when it was time for you to focus on yourself.
For my own sanity, I had to. It was not going to be pretty if I didn't.
Yeah.
It was almost like if you take on another thing without really dealing with whatever it is this underlying, because I didn't even know what it was.
Right.
That was the thing. I was just like, I felt whole, but I felt like something was missing. I felt like I had done so much self-work spiritually, emotionally, even with my initial therapy in my 30s, like life after divorce, like just so many different things. And I had grown so much. And I really thought, like, I'm good. Like, I've mastered the journey of healing. I really thought I was whole. But when I got triggered that time, I said, there is something missing.
Right.
There is one piece that I haven't peeled back the layers, and I can't do it on my own. Like, I don't know what this is that I'm feeling, but I know it's there, and I didn't like the person that I was when I lashed out in that incident. I was super embarrassed because it was so not me. I kept apologizing to the person. Like, it was a train wreck.
But the most important thing is that you recognized that there was an issue and you did the work to get through that, because we all deserve to thrive, right?
Yeah.
And live the lives that we want, that suit us.
Yes.
We can be purposeful in our lives and intentional.
Yes.
So, don't beat yourself up. And I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah, it was rough.
Vulnerability.
It was very rough.
But you acknowledged it.
Yeah, I do.
So many people don't even acknowledge it. They just continue to go through life blaming everything under the sun and then never do the work to change.
Yeah. I wanted to get to, because I felt like my next level and my best version of me was locked in whatever that was. And going through trauma therapy, like, really revealed that. And having my therapist be an emotional intelligence coach. So I got to figure out the root of the trauma and the triggers. And then she gave me the tools to navigate it, because the triggers never leave. You can't control the outside sources around you. You can only control how you respond, how you react. So she gave me the tools and resources to know, like, if and when you get triggered again, this is how you can navigate that. Because your feelings are valid because of your trauma. Like, you can't dismiss what you've gone through, but you can grow through it so that you don't, like, lash out on people.
Exactly.
Like, don't be afraid to be vulnerable, and just, if somebody hurts your feelings, instead of getting upset and yelling, just tell them, like, this hurt my feelings. I've learned to table conversations until my emotions are processed to speak on it. I used to just to open my mouth, whatever comes out, ugly, good, great. It was a mess, and so now I find myself when I have like difficult conversations, especially with people I love. Sometimes I just become a listener, and I may have to come back days later and say, "Hey, can we talk like now? Because I'm ready to speak."
That's growth.
I've been able to process what you shared with me. And in the moment, I didn't have the words. Like I had to learn that it was okay to not have the words all the time to articulate what you're feeling or what you're thinking. And you say the wrong thing and you can't take back what you said, especially being a mom, like the girls. I only got one child. I got to get it right. I was like, I can't get it wrong. And so I've had to learn, that not only about her, but just me communicating better. Like she hates yelling.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to be a yeller. My dad was a yeller. I had it honestly. I talk loud. Now I have to be mine. Now she's like, Mom, you're like yelling.
She know you're doing the work. But because you're doing the work, I mean, you have the power to kind of change the trajectory for your family. Your daughter's watching you.
Yeah.
Maybe there are other relatives watching you and learning from you.
Yeah.
So, it takes one. Sometimes it takes one to kind of turn things around for the family.
I'm trying to. And that's what the foundation is really about. Like you asked, when did I get the vision? So God gave me the vision at 21 years old.
Mm-hmm. And
when I was because I had to go through life. I had to grow. I had to glow. I had to fumble. Like I had to go through mess. I had to go through trauma therapy. And I met my trauma therapist in like such a odd way. Like she was a guest speaker at my church one night. And I wasn't even going to go. And I said, let me get up and go. I'm not going to be lazy. Let me go in. And I got there and church was packed. I was like, I knew it was going to be packed. And she starts doing her speech that night. It was biblical and it was God-based, but it was about trauma. And it was about how to navigate that. And I'm sitting there and she's like, can I take y'all to therapy tonight? And I'm like, I'm listening. And so I said, I got to find out who this lady is. I had no idea who this lady was, never met her in my life. And I went and found her on social media. Shout out to Dr. Kalita Forbes. She's amazing. I DM'd her like, hey, you were at my church the other night. You were amazing. Like, my life is forever changed. I was like, I see that you're she's a clinical therapist who specializes in trauma and she's an emotional intelligence coach. And I said, when you're taking new clients, please let me know. And she reached back out, just responded to my message. And she was like, I sure will. She was like, thanks so much. Just a little conversation. And maybe like a month later, she reached out and was like, your prayers have been answered. No lie, legit. Like God just be bringing the people. Like it's sometimes I don't even know what I need or who I need. And I'll just pray about things that are like on my heart or on my mind. And then it's just like it falls in my lap, literally, like with the foundation, my vision at 21. I was like, God, I know you don't want me to carry this big torch. Like for the whole family in my head, I'm like, because the foundation is not so much about me as a founder. It is about when God gave me that vision at 21, I wasn't ready to receive it. Like it wasn't the time anyway. It was more like a seed being planted. Like you're going to be the one that's going to take this traumatic experience that your family has gone through and you're going to change lives. You're going to change laws. You are going to make this world pay attention to this cause. And I'm like, okay, God, sure I am. And I wasn't in my spiritual walk heavy then. I was 21 years old. I'm partying. I'm in college. I just became a mom. I ain't think about that. I'm like, okay. Fast forward 20 years later, when I turned 41, I was like, okay, it's time. The job loss came. Like, just so many things kept happening. And I just kept hearing God say, like, this foundation is needed and it's going to bring healing to your entire family. Because to this day, nobody has gone to therapy but me. My parents are still alive. They came down for the lunch. And so 2 years ago, I said, for my brother, in honor of his 50th birthday, what would have been his 50th birthday, I'm going to have this foundation up and running. Mm-hmm. Now I'm not operating out of trauma no more. I'm operating in some wholeness now. Yeah. But I'm still a heavy goal setter. And if I speak it, I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. And so I said, his 50th birthday, I'm going to make this happen. And I met this young lady at a vision board party. We were sitting at the same table. And I was telling her about the foundation. And I'm like, yeah, I need to get my nonprofit off the ground, but I don't really know where to start. But I'm going to put it on my vision board to make that a focus this year. This was in 23. And she said, I actually consult in that space. I help people develop and get their nonprofits started. And I'm just sitting there looking at her like, you gotta be joking.
Doors opening left and right.
I'm telling you, in a vision board party that I won a ticket to because I had went to a previous event and I booked a ticket for the dinner and they ran out of food.
Oh my God.
And so they they gave us a comp ticket to this vision board party for the era. And I was like, that's fine. Okay, I'll come. I didn't think nothing of it. I'm like, okay, it's a vision board party. Lo and behold, I end up at the same table with the very lady who helped me build my foundation. Like from the 501c3 certification, like she did everything. We met, we exchanged information. I booked a consultation. She sent me my invoice. The rest was history.
Amazing. Wow. I mean, Tan, I'm speechless. You have gone through so much in life, yet still able to strategize and plan and make goals and listen to your inner voice and be guided in different directions. There's a lot that people can learn from you.
There's a lot to unpack.
Well, I want to also talk about, outside of work, career stuff. Are there any other areas in your life where you feel you have pivoted? And I know you've shared, you let go of alcohol. That's huge. But any other areas? Do you have any hobbies or, other areas of health and wellness?
Yeah, so for me, I am what they call the self-care friend. So I'm the person that makes sure everybody gets their self-care in. Like through all my trauma and all of my stuff that I've gone through, I have always maintained a certain level of balance. Like even in corporate America, when I was in leadership roles and managing like so much big teams and businesses for them, I always had balance. I always took time to myself. I love a good island vacation. That's my thing. I took them first 6 months. I was catching flights every other week. I was gone. Mm-hmm. Like, where you going now? But I'm big on self-care. Like sometimes self-care for me looks like sitting on the couch reading parts of a book. Mm-hmm. Sometimes self-care for me looks like going to the nail spa and getting a mani and pedi. Just depends. Sometimes self-care for me is like, if I wake up and don't feel like doing nothing, I don't. And I didn't used to be like that. I used to feel so unproductive if I wasn't doing things. Mm-hmm. But I realized that was a lot of trauma response. Like, right. It's okay to rest. It's okay to like not be doing anything. It's okay to not be planning your next move. Like I had to learn to like really enjoy where I'm at. I had to really learn, like, it's like a learned skill.
It is.
Have layered your life in trauma. You never really slow down to be grateful for the season that you're in. Mm-hmm. Like, I was always striving for the next best thing. And then it was like, once I didn't want to do catering anymore, I got in this space of like, I don't know what I want to do. Like, I knew the foundation, of course, is going to be there. And the big goal is to have a community center in every inner city in the United States. Mm-hmm. Atlanta being the starter. Virginia will be the flagship because that's the home team. And then every inner city, that's my goal over the next decade to build out these centers across the globe. But I got in a space where I didn't know what was next. Like during this pivot, this last 2 years, I got in a like, I don't even want to call it like a funk. It was a part of that transformation of figuring out like what is next for me? Where do I flourish? Like, and I would ask God, like, what do you want from me in this season? Because I'm in a place now where I'm more led by the spirit versus my emotions versus what I know I could be successful in winning. So I got in this really vulnerable place of like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing some days. You know, it was days where I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna pay this bill, but something gonna get figured out. Like I went through that financial like phase too of in this pivot, not knowing where income was gonna come from. And I got big grown lady, I got bills that some grown men can't even pay. Seriously. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at these bills and I'm like, God, you are calling me to do foundation, kingdom work. Like my ministry is my foundation. I know that. I know I'm not called to the traditional church ministry. You know, I'm not going to be the one in the choir singing. I'm not going to be at the door being the usher. I love going to church. I love the fellowship and worship, but I know my foundation and changing lives. And that perspective is my ministry, it's my purpose, is what I'm called to. But that's a nonprofit business. You know, of course, we say nonprofit, but you got to make profit to run and operate. But in the process of like getting that up and running and launching, I had to put all my focus into that. So I wasn't taking clients on either side of the business.
Okay.
And I was like, I gotta have some money coming in here some kind of way. And like things would just happen. Like a friend called me back in March and said, Tan, God told me to pay your mortgage this month. Like, how much is your mortgage? Like, literally, she didn't have no clue that I didn't share with anybody that I wasn't taking clients, that money was tight. Like this first half of the year has been really, really tough financially. And when she called me, she said, what you're doing is just so like needed. And she said, I don't want you worried about how you want to pay your bills this month. And she was like, because you need to focus on your lunch. This is actually, just called me on this bossy like call. I was like, I don't need you to be worrying about hustling this month. She didn't even know that I'm like, I take no clients anyway. And she said, God told me to pay your mortgage. And on that phone, she said, how much is it? And I told her, and she said, I'm going to send it to your Zelle. And in that conversation, my phone was pinging to my Zelle, and she paid my entire mortgage for that month. And I'm sitting there like, she didn't even have no idea that I really didn't even have my mortgage money that month. Like, legit. I was sitting there like, I'm going to pay my mortgage this month. I got this money going into the foundation and the lunch. You know, I'm paying vendors. I'm coming out of my own pocket, believing in this foundation so much. Like, I was getting donations from friends and like strangers. I posted on social media for the event, but it just wasn't enough. And so I was filling in the gaps with my own personal money to make this launch happen. And so when she called me, I'm sitting there like, I'm just sitting there like, is she serious?
I'm just surrounded by angels. But you were doing the work. You were doing what you were supposed to do. You were being obedient. The doors were opening for you and you were being taken care of.
I'm like, and it was almost like he was just trying to restore my faith of like, don't worry so much about these businesses that you've built. Get in your ministry, in your foundation work. It's what you love. It's what I'm calling you to do. And I'll make sure you got everything you need. Like, I could not believe my mortgage is now paid through the rest of the year and I didn't pay it. Like, I didn't pay it. So it was like my faith got restored because it's tough when you are really used to having that security blanket of like corporate America and having that money coming in, having benefits. Like now I have to pay my own health insurance, my own dental and vision. Like this is all new to me the last, 2 years. And
Right.
so it's like my face sometimes, that doubt done creeped in when stuff start getting tight and it's looking like it ain't gonna be enough. And, it's just, I want people to know like the pivot is not pretty, because people see the success, they see all the great things, they look, they're like, oh, she's doing amazing things. People follow me on social media and like, I'm blessed and I do get to do amazing things, but there are parts of the pivot that get like, right. There's times where I've done catering events and I had to pay my staff and I didn't make a penny. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't that we didn't generate revenue off the job. It got absorbed in the operating costs, between the food budget, you allocate for that. And then you got all these other operating costs. Then you got to have staff to come work. You know what I mean? So it is times as a business owner where you don't get paid because you have to make sure somebody else does get paid. You know what I mean? And I just feel like we don't talk about that enough.
No.
In like business and pivots, we paint this pretty picture and like today I wanted to be really transparent and really honest and just vulnerable. That's a part of my journey since my trauma therapy, just being who you are and realizing that people really get inspired not because of the greatness in you and all of the success you have. They want to know, like, if they're on the verge of just giving up to them, how did you move forward during your tough times? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, let's talk about that.
We don't. That's an excellent point that you bring up, because just as we position ourselves and prepare ourselves for the successes and the celebrations and the different stages that come along with change in business, you also have to prepare yourself for the obstacles. Yes. You have to almost rehearse in your mind, okay, when these bumps come along, how am I going to react? Yes. Am I going to throw in the towel? So you have to actually get your mind ready for all of the feelings, all of the things. So
it's a huge mindset shift, and you can plan, but it's gonna be things that are gonna arise, and you just gotta trust that it's gonna work out in your favor. Like, it's just, if you think about it, you have two choices. You can think negatively, and what is that gonna change? Like, you can wallow in it, you can feel self-pity, you can be crying and doing all this carrying on, but is it going to change the outcome or the circumstance where you are, or you can have this positive mindset of saying, you know what, this is a tough time for me right now, but it's going to get better. It's going to change. This is a lesson in this for me to take to my next season. And that is what has kept me going a lot in the tougher times of the pivot.
You said it all. I was just going to say that, you also have to determine when those things happen, is it going to be enough to cause you to want to throw in the towel and give up? So, like you said, mindset is everything.
Yes.
Goodness, you know what, Tan? I didn't even have to go through my normal questions. You touched on everything. So I think actually this will be a good and fun time to move into what I like to call the strawberry round, where I'll ask you 5 questions and you can answer short and sweet.
Okay.
First one is, name a book that has inspired you tremendously.
I would say The 8 Rules of Love by Jay Shetty.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
It's a great book. Initially, on the surface, I thought it was going to be about love and marriage and relationships. And some of it is about that, but 8 Rules of Love, it tells you how to get it, how to keep it, and how to let it go from all walks of love. So self-love, family love, friendship love, relationship love. So I move in love in everything I do. So that book really inspired me to realize that you do take love from different places in your life. You can't look to one person to give you everything you need, or yourself sometimes to give you everything you need. You pick up love in different places along the way. So it's very inspiring.
I love that. What's a software tool that you can't live without, personal or professional use?
Professionally, Microsoft Notes.
I don't think I've ever tried that.
Oh my goodness.
It's not the little sticky note that, okay.
Microsoft Notes. I cannot live without that tool. I have it on my laptop. It's transferable. You can email it out. You can share it where people can collaborate and work on the note together. It keeps me organized, structured with all of my businesses and everything I got going on. When I have meetings, I pull it up because I write notes sometimes, but having digital notes is more so me. You can highlight, bold, you can everything you need to do. You can flag it, you can put to-do lists on it. Like I would say Microsoft Notes for me has organized my life. When I used to be a very unorganized note taker. I had someone do a crash course and teach me how to use Microsoft Notes, and I fell in love with it since.
I have to check it out.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of old school. I'm always writing stuff down. And when I do use something online, it's the Notes app in my phone.
I use that too. Yeah, I use that too if I'm mobile. But yeah, Microsoft Notes, check it out. Personally, my JBL speaker, Apple Music. Let me just say, Apple Music. Music has gotten me through so much in life.
Girl,
my most grateful part of my body is my hearing and my ears. I can't go without music. If somebody told me music was over with, I just
my life would be over.
I'm done.
Exactly.
I'm done.
And it starts from childhood, doesn't it? Still growing up in a musical house.
Yep. Saturday cleanups, the music is blasting. Like I love music.
Me too. Name someone you'd love to have lunch with and why.
I would actually love, and this is probably people probably be like, what? I would love to have lunch with Kris Jenner. I get it. I would love to have lunch with Kris Jenner because in all of my pivots and businesses and where I'm at in life, she has mastered branding and marketing and like building billionaire people and businesses.
Yeah.
So I would love to just sit and have lunch with her and like pick her brain. Like I feel like I can learn so much from her. I feel like she's been that mom. She's been a wife. Like she has layers to her. She's been through divorces, like that, like a lot trauma, different things. Like I feel like I could not only relate, but just learn so much from her. Marketing and branding is not my strong suit. So that's why I would choose. I always try to choose someone I can learn from.
Right.
Especially if it's a weakness or I would like to say area of opportunity for myself. So that's why I would lunch with Kris Jenner. I would be like on a high if I had, if somebody said I'm a gift for lunch.
She has gems to drop.
I would be in heaven.
Did you know that she recorded an online masterclass with I think the company's name is Masterclass. Yeah. I was thinking about taking that.
Me too.
All people one day.
I started getting ready to take that class. I had like a free credit to Masterclass from corporate America, and I started taking some other ones, and I never got a chance to do hers, but I think I'm going to go do it.
And they always have specials. I'm always seeing things pop up on Instagram. Do you have a life motto or favorite quote?
All right. I'm going to look in the camera for this one because y'all need to hear me and hear me good. My life motto is never go back to anything that you have prayed your way out of. Ooh. And I live by that because I truly believe anything that you have prayed your way out of is your deliverance. And going back to something you've been delivered from is like counterproductive. If you got to pray your way out of something, you don't need to go back to it.
I feel like anybody can take that and use it as advice to follow, whether you follow a certain faith or not. That's real life stuff.
Yes.
So thank you for that. And what's your top self-care ritual? Now, I know we've been talking about travel and spa, but do you have a favorite?
My favorite is solo travel. To any island on this world. Like I absolutely love Aruba is by far my favorite island to visit. I just love the people, the flamingos, the water. Like Aruba has been my best experience. The people there are just so happy. Like they call it the happy island. Like that is what Aruba's like theme is, one happy island. And it's such a small island that everybody's community and like everybody there is happy to serve you. I didn't encounter not one local person that was just not overly like joyful. I was like, what? But then when I stayed there for some days, I was like, no wonder y'all so happy. This place is beautiful. It's amazing. Like, I want to live here too. But that would be my favorite. Travel tops everything. If, people talk about their vices, travel is my vice. If I can travel, I will be like, I haven't traveled internationally since last July. And it's killing me. But I've been so engulfed in everything. Right. I have not taken a trip for leisure since my birthday last year. I went to Jamaica. Mm-hmm. But I'm going on a trip in this month for my birthday. And I'm out of here. Because I'm like, I don't care what's going on in my life. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get this travel booked, and I'm gone. Because it's getting to me now. Yeah. You got to take care of yourself. I need that self-care. So I've been doing all the other stuff, getting my feet done, reading books. I'm like, this is not. It's like those things are good, but you got to do what really brings you joy. It's to right. Recharge your spirit. Yeah. And I'm solo traveling until I get like vacation travel. When I get ready, then I'll probably let them come on and we'll go together. But I travel a lot with friends and with my family, but my highest self-care is my solo trips by myself. I just enjoy them. Mm-hmm. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Tan. I mean, this conversation has been incredible. Thanks. You shared so much. I've learned so much. I mean, you got me motivated and fired up. I'm like, look, let me get over to my desk. Get my goals set going on. You're so strategic. Through all you've done, all you've been through, I always kept hearing, yeah, that was my strategy in the beginning, or I planned to do it this way. I mean, I have a strength in my brain. If anybody had to like sum themselves up in one word, I consider myself like a brain cell. And I don't know how I got to that place. I still, for the life of me, don't know. It might be a gift from God. Maybe that's why I don't say. Some people's minds just work that way. Yeah. And some of us actually have to work towards that. So yeah, I love that. I love when I can pick up that kind of energy because it motivates me. So thank you. You're welcome. You did a thing for me today on this Sunday. But have fun too. Like, I'm a very fun person. Yeah. I live life to the fullest. Like, I don't take life too seriously. Even after 40, you hear that? Because I feel like after our 40s and on up, the message that I always heard was, no, you need to, prepare for retirement, go somewhere and sit down, relax, hang it up. You too old to be doing this. You too old to wear that. You too old to act like, no. No. Yeah. I live to the fullest. I'm a Sunday Funday queen. It's Sunday. Listen, I enjoy my life. I do work. I used to work hard because I ain't even going to put that curse on my life no more. Now I work smart. So that strategy head of mine, it's like, okay, you did hard work in your 20s and 30s. The next 40 plus years, I'm not working hard for nobody, not even myself. Yeah. And if it looks like hard work, I'm not doing it. I was not. Because you know what? God promised me in these seasons coming forward that my life would be of ease. He didn't say that you ain't going to have to work to get to where you want to be. Right. But you won't have to get it out the mud. You won't have to start from the bottom no more. Even though it feels sometimes like I might be starting from the bottom. He was like, those days of hustling. Yes. Days of there you go. Hustling. I'm in the work. It no more. I ain't have it in me anymore. Right. I could do it if I had to, but I'm not even claiming that for my life. Hustling is over with. I hustled for 30 years. I'm tired. That's good that you were able to, recognize that that was enough for you. Because think about our parents and grandparents and before. A lot of them hustle, well into their 60s, some people in their 70s. I have worked with people over the age of 70, and I'm just thinking, gosh, I don't want that for me. Feel so bad. And I did work too. I see that, yeah. And I was like, you still working? Can't do it. My friends, and it's been out of
need,
It
a
has.
necessity. So I understand that, but it's up to us. Like you said, we have to live life with intention. We have to make goals. We got to strategize and build a life that's going to work for us.
Yes.
And hopefully that will encourage the younger people coming behind us. And the older ones will see us too and appreciate that we decided to take a different turn in life.
We decided to pivot.
Exactly. And on that note, I want to ask if you have any final words for our guests, words of encouragement, or words that they can take away to pivot in their own lives.
I would offer a word of encouragement and say, one, believe in yourself. If you have a goal or vision for your life, believe in it, because that's usually God speaking to you. You know, a lot of times we go on these paths in life of figuring it out, and then you have that full circle moment, kind of like me with the 21 with the foundation, and fast forward, here we are 20 years later in this full circle. I would just say believe in yourself for one, be very intentional. If you are on a journey of healing, don't be afraid to go through that healing. It's going to be scary. It is going to be difficult. It's going to test you. And know that it is a continuous journey. If you think about a person who has an addiction, and when they are delivered or broken from that addiction, they always say one day at a time, right? You'll hear people say, I've been sober for 975 days on their count, because they literally take it one day at a time. And you have to take your journey of healing and wholeness the same way. Life is going to always be a continuation of becoming a better version of you. And it doesn't happen overnight. And when you pivot, whether it's planned or unplanned, embrace it. Look at the opportunities in front of you. You know, ask yourself, in this pivot, what can I learn from this? What can I do differently? How can I change my mindset through this? Instead of looking at it like a death sentence. Like, I could have looked at my job loss and layoff as being this detrimental thing and just sat in depression, and, you know, I lost income. You know, I lost a job. I could have really just let that consume me. But instead, I started looking into myself as that reset time of like, okay, what is this journey about? So the best message I can give is to enjoy the journey. Enjoy the ride. Don't think too far ahead. Don't look too far back. Learn to enjoy what's in front of you and take it one day at a time.
Beautiful words. Beautiful, beautiful words, Tan. Thank you so much for that. Before we go, if anyone is interested in learning more about you or businesses, do you have any links you'd like to share? And any that you give me, I'll be sure to put them in the show notes.
Okay. Yeah. So you guys can follow me on Instagram at Tanya Topnotch. That's TANYA. Also, Make Justice Healing for the foundation. It is Make Justice Healing on all platforms, Instagram and Facebook. And you can check me out if you would like to. My links are all in my bio. If you go to Tanya Top Notch, that's my main page. It's open to the public. It has all my links there. And that'll take you to my websites and all of those things. So I would say Instagram is the best way to contact me, and it'll open up the floodgates to all of the wonderful and sometimes crazy things I have going on in my life.
No, I enjoy your page. I mean, especially the Sunday check-ins with Tan. Those messages, I'm serious. Sometimes I'm on there, you know, to work. I'm thinking about, okay, what I'm supposed to be doing for the podcast. And I come up on one of your messages and I'm like, I needed to hear that today.
Oh, thank you.
I needed to hear that today.
That's good to hear.
Check her out, everybody. Tanya, thank you so much again. Wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to another exciting episode of the MILFs Who Pivot podcast. Please take a minute to leave a review, and don't forget to follow the show, download the episodes, and share with the other MILFs in your life. Listen in on any of the major platforms, including Apple and Spotify, or watch our videos on YouTube. You can join the community on Facebook and Instagram at MILFs Who Pivot Podcast.